The Chicago Bears 5-game winning streak has come to an end in crushing fashion. The Chicago Bears have fallen to the Green Bay Packers 28-21. Came down to the very last minute, but unable to execute on that final drive, unable to get it into the end zone. Welcome to Wrap It Up. I'm your host, Jacob Infante, for the official post game recap show of the Second City Gridiron YouTube and Facebook channel. I'm also live here on my Twitter or X account at Jacob Infante 24. It's a bummer. I wish I could have something more exciting to break down. Things were definitely looking encouraging in that second half. Obviously, the Bears were able to turn things around, scored 11 points in that third quarter, but they're moving the ball down the field. They were moving the ball down the field, but that interception on fourth down sealed it off for the Bears, and they fall to 9-4. So there's a lot we're going to talk about here in the show today. If any of you are listening live, then feel free to send any of your comments or questions in the live chat here on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, wherever you're watching this right now. Uh, Feel free to fire away. Also, if you can only watch part of this live, then you can feel free to rewatch it anywhere you get your podcasts on the Second City Gridiron Podcast Network. So uh, we're going to start things off. Ellis in the Twitter chat says, awful call at the end, but it was the first half that truly cost us. So ultimately, I agree. I think that in the NFL, you can never point to one specific player, and be like, okay, that's the only reason that they lost. I mean, the fact that it was, you're down by a touchdown late in the fourth quarter, uh, it shows that clearly something went wrong. And the first half, I agree. They went into halftime. It was 14-3. The Bears were down. Uh, it was it was a brutal first half from start to finish. And if they actually executed, then who knows exactly, how good they could have been and how things could have turned out. I think that, the offense just it wasn't executing. I mean, the pass protection wasn't good in the first half. It got better in the second half for sure. Caleb Williams felt a lot more comfortable in the second half, but the first half wasn't very good. The run game got a little bit better in the second half. Again, the first half was, nothing to really write home about. Uh, and I mean, yeah, if you kept that second half level of play going through all four quarters, the Bears would have won this game, but that just wasn't the case, unfortunately. Uh, I agree. I mean, like I for those of you watching live, I tweeted out a video of the clip where Caleb Williams, rolled out left and threw it to Cole Kmet in the end zone. It was clearly covered. It wasn't a good throw. It wasn't a good decision to throw that ball. It wasn't a great call by Ben Johnson to execute, to make that the fourth down play, in my opinion. Caleb had DJ Moore. He had DJ Moore on the flat. I mean, it would have been a little bit of a difficult throw, but it's a caliber of throw that Caleb Williams has already made several times in the past. That uh, across his body, and it's not necessarily like DJ would have had to work across his own body and make the catch. Like he had some space to work with uh, underneath, and I think that's part of like the high low concept they executed, where if Cole Kmet wasn't open over the top, then DJ was going to be open underneath. It was a bang bang play, but again, that's a play that an NFL starting quarterback has to make. All that said, Caleb Williams wasn't bad today. Uh, he wasn't great. Uh, that's just my take on the matter. There were highs and there were lows. I think that if you're going into this game like, oh, Caleb was terrible, then you're really overlooking a lot of the good that he did in the second half. But if you're also saying, oh, he was fantastic, he was, the reason that the Bears lost was solely because of the defense or whatever the case might be, then I think you're also, overlooking some things. So it's a much more nuanced conversation than Caleb equals good or Caleb equals bad. I think he's a little bit of both, honestly. And we saw that today. So And as we're going through here, a couple of you are mentioning here in the chat, if he throws it to Komet first read, he's open right out of the gate. I think a couple people have mentioned that that Komet was wide open. So if we go through and watch it here, obviously yeah, I can't pull it up necessarily, but if we watch here, Caleb's rolling out to his left. Uh, he's got DeAndre Swift coming out of the backfield on uh, like going to the flat, and I can't really tell from this replay necessarily, but it looks like Caleb might have been a split second too late to actually pull the trigger on Komet. Uh, Again, I could be wrong. I'd have to check from a different angle, but as I'm looking again here, you can see DJ Moore becomes open as whoever that is. That's 2024, 21. I can't see very well, but one of the defenders, as you'll see, if you're not if you don't have the clip pulled up, I definitely recommend you go back and watch it. One of the defenders cuts back because they noticed Olamide Zacchaeus uh, showing up underneath. Uh, they had him cut inside on a chip block and then work back outside of the flat. And then DJ Moore is literally like a 3-level read where you have Komet going over the top and then you have DJ Moore, not necessarily the intermediate, but like a more mid-level sort of route across, over towards the sidelines, and then Zacchaeus underneath. Uh, that one defender goes to Zacchaeus. Moore was open there, so I'd have to go back and check to see from a different angle if Cole Kmet was truly wide open on that touchdown pass, and Caleb just threw it to him late. But all I know at the time that the ball was thrown, he wasn't open. So it's something that the second half might be a little bit more satisfying to watch from a pure like, hey, I'm a Bears fan. I don't want to watch shitty football again. Uh, if it's my team playing, but so the second half should be better with that. But that'll be something that I'm looking forward to checking out and looking a little bit deeper into. N Man from the Twitter chat says, I'm still optimistic about the Bears. And honestly, I think that obviously this wasn't a game. This wasn't the Bears' best game. This was a game, you hope they'd be able to pull off and win. Uh, but I think that it shows that, they're still a serious team. Like if you're going to Green Bay, it's one of the more hostile environments for an opposing team to go to. Uh, in the cold weather with a diehard Packers fan base, like that's not an easy environment to win in. I think that going into this game, admittedly, I expected the Bears to lose. I know that a good handful of others did too. I mean, obviously, you're not hoping the Bears lose, but I think this is one where the Packers are just a really good team, and maybe they weren't perfect today, but they played pretty damn good football for a majority of that game. They deserve a lot of credit for how well coached they were, for how Jeff Hafley looked, especially in the first half. That Packers defense was fantastic. And even in the second half, I mean, Caleb was still pressured a decent amount. He was just able to get out of those sacks. So the Packers deserve a lot of credit. They are a very good team. Uh, if you get those two teams, in 2 weeks at Soldier Field, I mean, who knows? Uh, Usually I don't think that there's like a 7 point slant from, for being the home team or anything like that. But the Bears were competitive in a difficult environment. This Packers team, I believe, is much better than the Packers team last year, especially in week 18 that the Bears ended up playing and beating at Lambeau Field. So, uh, I'm still optimistic too. I think this was one where, I mean, it would have been great to win, and coming so close, I mean, just stings, obviously. But at the same time, there's only so much, there's still plenty of football left. Still plenty of football left to play this season. You have the Browns next week. You have the Packers again, 49ers and Lions. I still believe if you go 2 of 2 in those games, which I think they can't, I think they're likely to beat the Browns. I mean, in the NFL, never say never, who knows, but I think they're likely to beat the Browns. And if they can beat one of those three teams, if they can beat one of those three teams, the Packers at home, the Lions at home, and then the 49ers, I think that's in San Francisco, but still, uh, 49ers aren't invincible. So I get it. Losing to the Packers always sucks, no matter what year it is. Uh, but it could have been a lot worse. I think they showed a lot of fight. They showed good second half adjustments in the coaching staff. But yeah, I'm still optimistic on that end too. It's a tough loss, but it is what it is. Let's see. I'm looking through for a comment to pull up here. And if anybody's got any questions or anything that we want to, or anything you want me to point out that I can talk to here, just feel free to let me know in the chat on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching it. Also, if you're just joining now, welcome. This is Wrap It Up with Jacob Infante, the official post game show of the Second City Gridiron Network. Also, the most viewed fucking Bears post game show on Twitter. So again, toot my own horn because I have a fragile ego, but it's fun to say. This is the place to be. You guys are a lot of fun, and you provide a lot of insightful content that's exciting to chat about with you guys here. My dad, Steve Infante, coming in. We got beat up in the trenches, and as much as I hate to say it, we were outcoached today. For the most part, I agree. I think that, especially in the first half, it wasn't even close. I think that Jeff Halfley, the Packers defensive coordinator, coach circles around Ben Johnson, and Matt LaFleur coach circles around Dennis Allen. I think that down the stretch, Ben Johnson made the capable adjustments, and the offense looked a lot better in the second half, obviously. But uh, yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, the trenches, the Packers did a good job of putting pressure on. The Packers did a good job of putting pressure on Caleb Williams throughout the course of the game. Uh, and yeah, I mean, in the trenches as well, the Packers pass protection was a lot better than the Bears pass rush today. Even going back to one of those touchdowns where they sent, what was it, like six or seven defenders. I'm sorry, even in a loss, I'm a fucking child. I did. So for those of you who are only listening to the audio version, I did the 6-7 thing because I'm immature. Sorry. I realize if some of you are listening, you probably have kids who do the 6-7 thing, and you're like, God, this 6-7 thing sucks. But I did it because I am worthless. Uh, anyway, I'm joking. But yeah, I'm with you for sure. Uh, Doink says, Jacob, I'm just so sad we came to compete in the second half, and I'm just so beat up about the fact it ended like that. I'm with you, man. I think that it's it's easy to get lost in the negativity of, oh damn, the Bears just lost. They lost to the Packers, and it came down to the wire. Uh, this is it's a competitive team. Like you said, they rallied back in the second half. You're putting together 18 of your 21 points coming in the second half. I mean, the passing attack looked a lot better. The separation looked better. Caleb was playing on time a lot more. It was a really impressive turnaround, like genuinely. And then obviously for it to end in an interception late in the fourth quarter, it stings for sure. But uh, I don't know. I keep trying to remind myself that this is the first season of Ben Johnson. Obviously, you can't win them all, and to be competitive against a perennial playoff team, a perennial NFC North contender in the Green Bay Packers. It sucks to lose. It sucks to lose, but this at least to me, this doesn't sting nearly as much as the Ravens game did, where the Ravens were playing bad football and Tyler Huntley was the quarterback, and it's like, why the hell did they lose that game by that much? This game, at least, it was a pretty full strength Packers team on the road. Uh, yeah. So let's see. Again, I just got a text from one of my boys I used to work with who he's a Packers fan. He just texted me, "Hey," with nothing else. So I'm gonna get to that in a second here. Ah, damn. Uh he got me. He got me good. But anyway, as Kiwi Bear says in the chat here, that 3rd and 2, we had 3 guys making a combined $45 million that missed the tackle on Josh Jacobs. That was a tough run in particular. I think Josh Jacobs, he's an incredible running back. Uh, and when you have a player of that caliber, naturally, he's going to be a little bit tougher to tackle. And I don't know, but even still, I think that there are a couple instances where the Bears defenders were a little bit too aggressive in pursuit, and like over pursuing their angles, overshooting, and not putting themselves in the right position, breaking down in space. A little bit of a bummer for sure. So, not to say that the run defense was consistently bad. I mean, there were a couple plays where the Bears were able to hold their own in the trenches and were able to, plug up running lanes for Jacobs and, well, mostly for Jacobs. I mean, Emmanuel Wilson had like 3 touches. But yeah, but I don't know. Andrews Angry says, hold them to a field goal there on that, assuming that last drive. And I think we win it or get to OT. I mean, I'm with you. I think that obviously they were in field goal range at the time that the Bears, at the time that the Bears threw that interception. I think that if you're able to hold them to a field goal, you play that a lot differently. You're a little bit more conservative. I think, you definitely would have gone for the field goal at 4th and 1 there. At least I would have. And you could argue send it to overtime. You could argue until the cows come home, be like, hey, what maybe the Packers offense was going to be able to get back into field goal range. I don't know. But yeah, I think it definitely stung, giving up that last touchdown for sure. Would have been huge if the Bears didn't allow. I mean, even just a field goal there, I think you would have attacked that a lot differently. You would have wound the clock down a lot more than the Bears did too. And they, still did a decent job of running the clock down. They went 60 yards, ran down a little over 3 minutes off the clock. But yeah, it's a bummer to think about. I mean, obviously, the defense had its moments. I mean, Nashawn Wright got called, had that offensive pass interference. He would have had an interception for sure. Like he was in position to pick that ball off if he didn't get, the pass interference against him. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson had that pick. The Bears offense wasn't able to capitalize on it because the Bears offense in the first half was absolute ass. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to look like to point at and be like, oh, if this one play didn't happen or if this one play didn't happen, to think about how things would have done differently. I think that the Bears had a little bit more momentum at the time. So if you get to overtime, I mean, who knows? Yeah, it's all purely hypothetical, but yeah, I mean, you could certainly make the argument something could happen there, but I don't know. David in the chat says Jalen Johnson, atrocious tackling effort. He must not be healthy. He's a liability right now. So that's one thing where I'll admit, like, I don't want to be too harsh on Jalen Johnson because he's been through a lot this year to be able to, battle through, multiple injuries and, to come back the way he has, I think is commendable. But I think I didn't break him down specifically in my Patreon breakdowns where I do scouting reports on a handful of Bears players every single week. I didn't break him down last week. Maybe I will this week. We'll see. But he did look like maybe a step slower last week and this week. I mean, obviously the secondary didn't do all that great. I didn't key in on Jalen specifically in coverage, but tackling, yeah. I mean, I think that it wasn't necessarily his best game. I think he'd be the first to admit that. I don't know if it's a matter of him still not being 100% or what it is, but yeah, I mean, I noticed that a little bit last week. Jalen didn't look too hot. And then today, the secondary in general didn't tackle very well. Jalen had some, missed opportunities too. But yeah, it's tough to think about. But Asterix in the chat here says, that's an asterisk, right? Hold on, let me see. That is an asterisk. So too much man and blitzing and not enough pressure resulted in an easy touchdown. I'm with you there. I think that Dennis Allen, I've given him a lot of credit this year for dialing up the pressure with blitzes, like being able to add into that, to generate pressure by the scheme more so than the individual play. I mean, the defensive line wasn't all that good. I'm just going to be honest as far as generating pressure with the front four. It's been an issue for most of this year. Montez Sweat's been good. Dexter's been solid rushing the passer, but other than that, there hasn't been a consistent force in that pass rush all year. Uh, and then, yeah, I mean, a man heavy approach, and it works if your secondary is strong, but the secondary wasn't performing very well today. And then the blitzing, uh, again, usually they've done a pretty good job of dialing up the blitz and using that to generate pressure. Wasn't the case this go around, which sucks, but I mean, it is what it is. Uh, yeah, and that's going to result in easy touchdowns, especially when you have speedy receivers down the field like Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. Christian Watson's been really cooking the last couple weeks. I got to give him credit for that. He's dealt with injuries throughout his NFL career, but he's living up to his potential a little bit more recently. So give him credit for that. But yeah, the defense, that's the downfall of having to rely heavily on the blitz uh, to generate pressure. Is it puts a lot of pressure on your secondary to do well in, on an island in those one-on-one situations. Uh, and if you can't do that, then it's kind of you're swimming up shit's creek without a paddle. So pretty brutal. And then, yeah, as more Lemonheads please mentions in the chat, 3 touchdowns. We blitzed DBs who got no pressure, which sucks, but it's not great. Not great to think about. Whitney Davis, OMG, he's so cute. Is he single? Yes, I am single. I know, right? Wow, this is crazy. Oh my God. Haha. Wow. Uh, yeah. So if there's any ladies out there trying to make me feel better about my team blowing a lead against a divisional rival, hit me up. DMs, I think they're open. Yeah, the DMs are open, so send me whatever, please. We're gonna do a quick ad read here for now. So stick around, and then we'll get to some more of your comments here over the course of the evening. So and it's ironic that this is the sponsor coming off of a Bears loss to the Packers, but I will say that look, I mean, taking care of your mental health shouldn't be harder than taking care of your physical health. If like say for example, if you pull a muscle, you go see a doctor. When it comes to finding the right therapist, suddenly it's frustrating. You've got long wait lists, or you're staring down huge out of pocket costs. I mean, that's usually what stops people from getting help. So that's where Rula comes in, our sponsor, RULA. Uh, RULA. Yep, I spelled it right. I had to run it through. I was in the spelling bee in middle school, but I'm not very smart, so I just need to make sure that I'm spelling it right for all of you. So Rula makes therapy simple, affordable, and fast. They work with most major insurance plans, and the average session copay is only $15. So if you think about it, $15, that's the cost of lunch. But instead of a sandwich, you're investing in your own headspace. And with Rula, you're not just matched with a therapist and then left to figure it out. I mean, they check in and they make sure you're actually making progress. Every therapist on the platform is licensed, vetted, and picked for their expertise. So you're talking with someone legit, not just whoever happens to be available at the time. So if you want to get started, it couldn't get easier. You answer a few quick questions about what matters to you, and then Rula connects you with in-network providers who actually fit your needs. You pick the time from there, and then you could be talking to a therapist as soon as the next day. No weeks of waiting, no endless back and forth. So the bottom line is, if you've been putting this off, Rula takes away the excuses. It's simple, affordable, and actually built to help you get better. So thousands of guys have already used Rula to finally get the care that they needed. Don't keep putting it off. I know I have before, and it's easy to put it off, but it makes the world of difference once you actually get started. So go to rula.com/gridiron and get started today. That's RULA.com/gridiron. Take the first step, get connected, and take control of your mental health. So For those of you just joining live now, welcome to Wrap. This is Wrapping Up with Jacob Infante, the official post-game show of the Second City Gridiron channel of podcasts here. We're going live on the YouTube channel, so feel free to subscribe and like if you haven't already. Like us on Facebook, and then wherever you get your podcasts. I mean, we go up live. This episode will probably be out within the day. So if there's anything that you missed, obviously you can go back and watch it on the stream, or you can check us out on those sites as well. So that leads us to the rest of this game, where the Bears lose 28-21 against the Green Bay Packers. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to fire them away in the chat. I've got a couple here that I'm going to go through. I'm realizing I need to text my buddy back, who's a Packers fan. He just texted me, hey, and I'm sending him the nothing to smile about in my life picture with the guy with the Bears hat. So I'm gonna take the respectful approach. I'm gonna say good game. Honestly, you guys outcoached us, which is fair. In the first half, especially, Halfley had us in a blender. Those first few quarters. Sucks to lose like that, but at least we were competitive. Sure, something like that. I think that works. I mean, realistically, I think the Packers did outcoach the Bears. Things definitely got better in the second half. But overall, if they're more efficient in the first half, then that's probably a game they win. But I don't know. House Beer Hall says Jacob Infante is better than Nick McLeod. I mean, my God. So I'll give Nick McLeod credit. He did have one pass breakup in the second half, which was pretty nice. But yeah, that he's been. I don't know if it's still the case, but I know at one point when he was targeted, it was a 158.3 allowed targeted passer rating. So that was pretty rough. ESPN had him responsible for 2 pass breakups, actually. So I don't know. We'll have to go back and watch that. But yeah, I know early on in the game wasn't too hot, and this year just hasn't been great. I mean, obviously, if you don't have Kyler Gordon, who suffered a groin injury, that's what had him out for most of the last few weeks. Then he came back. Then he got hurt in warmups, which obviously that stings. I mean, whenever you don't have your starting nickel cornerback, naturally that means you go to the next man up, who's further down on the depth chart for a reason, which sucks. Shelby says beautiful decor, thank you. So this actually, I wish that this was my decor. I wish this was my apartment, but I'm actually at my dad's right now. So his place looks a lot more professional and a lot more adult than mine. You can see the clock. I think this looks pretty nice. The clock is pretty sweet. And then this is that's a Louis V gun, right? That's Louis Vuitton. This is messing with me. And again, if you're listening to this live on the podcast, you're probably going to be annoyed. Yeah, that's a Louis Vuitton Tommy gun in the back. So hell yeah. Thank you, Shelby. I think the backdrop looks pretty sweet too. I came over to watch the game because he's in the city and I'm in the city. So it's like, hell yeah, why not? Logan King says, I don't know about anybody else, but that game made me excited for these Bears-Packers games in the future. Silly mistakes, but the team played with passion, which has been severely lacking the last several years. And we touched a little bit about it, about the optimism coming out of this game earlier in the show. But yeah, I think that this was a game where a lot of what went wrong is pretty coachable. I mean, I think that from a pure talent perspective, I don't come away from that like, oh, the Bears are significantly less talented than the Packers. I mean, The Packers won the game. I mean, you could argue they're the more talented team, but I don't think it's a massive discrepancy. I think that if the Bears play a clean game of football, they probably would have been able to win that game. I mean, granted, the Packers made some mistakes too down the line, but uh, I think it goes to show how many years of failure the Bears have had against the Packers. Last year's final game excluded. I mean, that's the only game. Keep in mind that's the only game the Bears have won against Green Bay in the entire decade of the 2020s. And most other games have been pretty decisively Green Bay all the way. Uh, Last year, I mean, was also close. The Bears, like, they're still playing Green Bay competitively, but I think as this is a better Green Bay team as some of what we've seen last year, I do think that this is a better Bears team. And I think that showed in the way that they bounced back and the way that they didn't quit and the way that they adjusted. Again, in Eberflus era, in probably a Matt Nagy era, you're not seeing as much of that second half adjustment, that ability to diagnose, all right, what went wrong? How can we fix that? Like that's what Ben Johnson's getting paid the big bucks for, is to be able to identify what the problems are and what moves to be able to make, what coaching adjustments to make to bounce back in the second half. And it worked. I mean, obviously it didn't work in the form of a win, but they got a lot better. So uh, don't get me wrong. I'm bummed out the Bears lost. Anytime you lose to Green Bay, it sucks. I mean, Bears fans know as good as anyone losing to your main divisional rival is always pretty bad. I don't know, but I feel like things are a little bit better this go around. Uh, Hal's Beer Hall. My guys over at Hal's Beer Hall say if you could give the opposite of a game fall, maybe something, fucking, I don't know, something like that, to one offensive player, one defensive player, who would it be? Uh, that's a good question. Let's see. I'm checking here too. Uh, Sorry, I got uh distracted because I have the attention span of a squirrel, and I'm checking on Twitter to see how the show's doing right now. Right now, we're doing pretty solid. Little under 4,300 people watching live. Thank you all for tuning in. Much appreciated. But to get to the question, so I'm not dodging it. To one offensive player and one defensive player, a game fall, so to speak. That's tough. That's a good question. I mean, coming out of that game, DJ Moore got targeted 3 times. He only caught one pass for -4 yards, and that was the one where they had him go in motion. Uh, they ran the they ran the jet sweep to him. I believe it was the jet sweep, and then he got tackled after the line of scrimmage. Obviously, like I tweeted out after the fact that you had DJ Moore open across the middle of the field. It would have been a little bit tougher, but it's one that Caleb Williams is. It's a type of throw that Caleb Williams has made before. But all in all, I mean, DJ Moore, when you didn't have a Dunze, you needed more to step up. I don't think he did consistently nearly enough. Uh, Especially in the first half. I mean, you're looking, guys just aren't able to get open. DJ was one of those guys who wasn't able to get open. And then in the second half, you saw more opportunities show up for Luther Burden, for Colston Loveland, for Cole Komet a little bit down the field. I mean, even Devin Duvernay had a nice grab down the field on that 24-yard pickup. But DJ just consistently wasn't, you know, around. He wasn't open very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the All 22 has to say to see if that backs up what I saw on the broadcast tape, because you can never identify for 100% what happened from just the broadcast tape. If you have the All 22, that provides a much better understanding of what went wrong and where it went wrong. Defense, though, that's a little bit tougher. To one defensive player specifically. Uh, hmm. I mean, I might just cheat and say the whole defensive line. I mean, on first glance, Jervon Dexter wasn't amazing. Grady Jarrett didn't really generate much pressure up the middle on passing downs. Andrew Billings is, a little bit, used a little bit more as a run defender, which is interesting because I thought he was a little bit better as a pass rusher actually the last 2 seasons under Eberflus, but uh, there's very little pressure up the middle from that defensive tackle room, and I think that didn't really get Jordan Love off platform very often. It didn't disrupt a lot. I mean, he had like a strong pocket to work with pretty consistently, and when you have a clean pocket to work with, it makes it a lot tougher to disrupt plays if you're a defense. If you're a secondary, especially if you're blowing these assignments, then you know, you have a clean pocket, the quarterback's going to be able to exploit that and he's going to be able to get the ball to you. So I'll go the defensive tackle group. I know that's a little bit cheating. I can't say definitively one man over everybody else, but I think that Austin Booker had some plays in the run game. Rushing the passer just didn't really move the needle for me. Montez Sweat had a sack. Not a bad game for Montez Sweat. Obviously, whenever you have a sack, that's not a bad game per se. But the pressures just weren't what they needed to be from the defensive line entirely, and the lack of the pressure up the middle was pretty lackluster for sure. But Yankee also mentions in the chat here defense Brisker, Jaquan Brisker. That's honestly a pretty good one. I know on that one of the deep balls, I think it was Watson. I think it was Watson where Brisker was uh, he presented way too much cushion across the middle of the field, and they blitzed. They ran 6 or 7 again guys rushing the passer, and then they relied heavily on the defensive backs. And Brisker was playing a little bit too passive. I mean, naturally, I know safety. You're a little bit more used to playing off the line of scrimmage. You're not playing as much in press. That clearly wasn't his assignment. But even then, there's way too much cushion. And then at the top of the route, where you're accelerating out of your brakes at the top of your route, and you have all this cushion to work with immediately, that it's definitely an uphill battle for your receivers to work with, and or definitely an uphill battle for if you're a safety trying to jump the route, trying to make a play on the ball. And Brisker's a solid athlete. I don't want to say he's an elite enough athlete to where you could afford to be a little bit late in those diagnoses and to be a little bit more cushiony in coverage. Like, he doesn't have that Kevin Byard sort of range, or like a prime Eddie Jackson where, maybe like a little bit more explosive, so to speak. Again, Brisker's a good athlete. I don't think that he's elite enough from a speed perspective to where he can afford to consistently be more cushiony in coverage and allow that initial separation off the top of the route and then jump those routes. I mean, because clearly it didn't work. He allowed a touchdown on that specific play. So let's see. If you have any other questions here as well, feel free to run them by me here in the chat. Again, thank you to everybody who's been tuning in and contributing to the chat live. If there's anything you missed, feel free to check it out later on the YouTube page, on Facebook, on my personal Twitter, or you can just listen to the whole episode over wherever you get your podcasts. So, more Lemonheads, please, says, how can we start better? Script best Caleb plays. I think that you're right. The last couple weeks, the Bears haven't been as consistent firing out of the gates. I think that was something early in the year. The Bears did a good job of scripting plays that work to Caleb's strengths a little bit. I think part of it is the Bears just didn't run the ball very much that early. Or they didn't run effectively. So I want to go, if you go drive by drive here, which I'm going to do, that first play, DeAndre Swift up the middle for 5 yards on first down. Nice, encouraging. 2nd and 5, Caleb Williams pass incomplete, short left to Luther Burden. Then Third and 5, Caleb scrambles right for a first down, penalty, offensive holding on Darnell Wright, penalty. You lose 10 yards, and then Caleb is incomplete deep to DJ Moore. And that's a 3-and-out on the opening drive. I'd rely a little bit more on the run game because maybe this is just me. I feel like Caleb is, for better or worse, a little bit of a slow starter, and he's someone who heats up as the game goes on. The I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Yeah, he heats up as the game goes on, or he gets cold as the game goes on, as in ice in his veins, as an Iceman, whatever the fuck you want to call him, whatever. Point is, he gets better in the second half, I believe. And the more comfortable he gets, getting a feel for the defense, getting a feel for how they cover, uh, I think the better he is. And I think that some of that comes down to putting some of the pressure off of putting some of the pressure off of Caleb right out of the gate. If I go here too, let's go to the second drive. The first pass was that incompletion where it looked like Colston Loveland caught it and then fumbled it. And then it turned out to be an incomplete pass. False start by Colston Loveland. Pass incomplete on 2nd and 15. Pass incomplete on 3rd and 15. 4th and 15. I mean, obviously you're seeing penalties are playing into this for sure. And it's making it a lot more difficult to string momentum together when your offensive line is getting called for holding or you're getting called for false starts. And that's one of the things that's a little bit of a bummer about the Bears offense is they do a really good job of keeping defenses guessing with pre-snap motion, and also through that kind of revealing to the quarterback what kind of coverage the defense is in depending on how they react to the pre-snap motion. If it works well, it works really well and it's effective for the offense, but your whole team has to be on the same page. You can't be having guys, execute hitting these false starts like Loveland had one, and Darnell Wright's had a few over the course of the year. Theo Benedict's had some over the course when he was starting at left tackle too. I think Jonah Jackson maybe has had 2 or 3 or so over the course of the year. I'd have to go back and check, but uh, false starts naturally are a bit more of an issue for sure. So when you rely on that pre-snap motion, so I'd say run the ball is key. Starting out of the gate, I think the Bears do a really good job when they set the tone early. And what I think they're best at right now is just running it up the middle and then using that to open up play action or to keep the defense guessing and then stretch the ball down the field a little bit on those, deep passes across the middle of the field where Caleb's been really good this year. Uh, Outside of the numbers across the hash marks on the sidelines, I mean, that's a different story, but I think that if you take a little bit more of a run heavy approach, that allows Caleb to ease into it a little bit more, I think, and then get him comfortable for the second half so that depending on what the score is, what kind of situation you're in, he's a little bit more warm. And I mean, you probably don't have as much you probably don't have as much to panic about down the stretch. So I like the use of both Swift and Monangai. I mean, Swift was a little bit better today. He had 4.8 yards per carry on 13 runs. Monangai at 4.1 on 14 carries. But I feel like there's still, I mean, even if Swift was a little bit better today, I think they're both still talented running backs, obviously, and you need to get them both involved in the offense by, any means necessary. And the fact that you have a traditional like bruiser type of running back in Monangai who's tough and can run in between the tackles and can find those open lanes consistently and squeeze through those lanes as a downhill runner. And then you have Swift who can win in the outside zone, the wide zone runs. He's shown he's gotten better at being able to cut inside on those sort of runs, but he can also, cut outside of the tackles as well and make those work. So that's another thing too. I think that you have those two really talented running backs. I think lean on that early. Lean on that early because unless there's some sort of disaster, I mean, you're not playing from 2, 3 scores behind to open up your first offensive drive. I mean, come on. Like you have plenty of time to work with. Play your brand of football. I think they were a little too eager to throw the ball right out of the gate, and Caleb wasn't ready. And yeah, and I think just Halfley, the pressure that he was able to generate with the blitzes, the offensive line wasn't ready for it. Uh, so yeah, I just say run the ball. That's a little bit of a a general term. I'd say maybe Mononga's a little better on inside zone, Swift's a little bit better on outside zone and wide zone, but uh, adjust that a little bit. So that's the way that I'd go with it. David said, I just want Caleb to hit one deep ball from the pocket like we do with Love and May every week. And I mean, I'm with you. I think that you look at the two quarterbacks play. I mean, obviously, Jordan Love was the superior quarterback over Caleb Williams today. And I think that that's definitely been the case this year. Jordan Love is the superior quarterback. I think that as fun as it is to be like, oh, Jordan Love, whatever the fuck, oh, who cares? Uh, who's this dude? Sorry, I again keep getting distracted, but I think that there's still some instances on tape where there's just a lack of uh I'm blanking right now, but I think with Jordan Love, you feel a lot more comfortable with how he moves the ball down the field. And you feel a lot more comfortable with his consistent touch to all levels of the defense, attacking outside the numbers, attacking across the middle of the field, the intermediate game, the deep game. I think that Love does a lot better at that. I think that Caleb, he's shown flashes. It's just the consistency is not there yet. And I think that more often than not, the Bears rely a little bit more on stretching the ball down the field with passes that travel for more air yards. And as a result of that, I mean, it's going to be more boom or bust. Just naturally, the further you throw the ball down the field, that's a higher risk, uh, lower percentage of completion by default. But I think that Caleb, all things considered, is throwing the deep ball at a rather above average rate. It's just the intermediates to the hash marks that aren't all that great. And it's the fact that the Bears are relying heavily on that deep ball to where it's like, yeah, of course, Caleb's going to go for, less than 50% on passes that travel for more than 20% of air yards. Every NFL quarterback does. Like you can go through and look at the notes and look at the stats over the course of the year. Guys are throwing, 40% completion percentage, maybe close to 50%, like 30% for on the deep ball. A lot of those completions come from the underneath, which I think that Caleb, especially earlier in the year, was a little more inconsistent on. I think they've kind of shied away from those as the seasons progressed. But I mean, at the same time, like you saw in the second half, the offense looked pretty good. The offense is still effective in spite of Caleb Williams maybe not having the highest completion percentage in the world. And today it was just under 54.3%. I know that it's far short from the 70% that Ben Johnson set out at the beginning of the year, but I also think that Ben Johnson has adjusted his game plan a lot more to stretching the ball down the field. And I think that it's definitely playing a factor in the fact that Caleb's having consistently pretty bad completion percentages. I wrote an article about that at Windy City Gridiron that shows that in the grand scheme of things, you look at it from a completion percentage perspective, from a passer rating perspective, Caleb is an above average deep ball thrower. He's below average on screens and flat routes. He's below average on intermediate passes outside of the hash marks. He's really good across the middle of the field. Just statistically, that's the truth, or that's what the truth has been this season. So there's some encouraging passes for sure. And then David also clarifies mention in the chat. I mean, like a go ball, not a deep crosser. I think that's fair. The deep crosser, I think Caleb has done pretty good on. The go ball just isn't quite there. And I think that definitely plays into those issues that I'm mentioning outside of the hash marks, outside of the numbers, where just the touch isn't there yet. And obviously, that's not what you want at this stage. You want him to be better, but I think there's still clearly enough flashes. Like I know some people are, doom and gloom. They're like, "Oh, Caleb's not the guy." I disagree. I think that, yes, he clearly still has a lot more work to do. Is he the best quarterback in his draft class as things stand right now? No, definitely not. I mean, Drake May is playing much better football, but again, I think you're of the opinion where if the Bears are winning games and Caleb Williams is improving year after year, then I don't really care what's going on around. You can't control how Drake May does. You can't control how Jaden Daniels does, which by the way, he hasn't been very good this year. Uh, or what Penix or Bo Nix or Nine has done this year. You can compare Caleb to anybody else until the cows come home. As long as he's progressing and as long as he's slowly but surely getting the most out of his tools, I think that's what matters most. Now, could you argue that maybe he's a little bit behind where some of us had expected? There, especially the people who were touting him as, oh, he's a generational prospect, which I never thought he was, but he's still like one of the better quarterback prospects to come out of the draft in the last 10, 15 years. Uh, he's getting better. He's getting better. He still has a long way to go. And I think the most encouraging thing is the fact that the Bears are winning as many games as they are with Caleb not at his full potential. So that has me encouraged and it has me thinking like, okay, this could be something. Like give this, this year if you make the playoffs, which it's no guarantee now. I mean, realistically, the Bears fell to the 7th seed today. They were the number 1 seed going into this weekend, and then now they're the number 7 seed, and the Lions are right on their tail. So, but the Lions have a tough schedule. The Packers have a tough schedule as well. It's not going to be a sure thing, and the 49ers have a couple difficult opponents coming up too. So we'll see. But I am going to transition into the closing segment here. Jacob Infante's happy ending, and we just surpassed 5,000 views on our on Twitter, at least on the live stream. So thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Uh, Again, stroking the ego because I'm sad. The highest viewed show on Twitter X. So if you want uh, the post game opinions, this is the place to be, and I truly believe that. And a lot of that comes down to you guys. You sharing your opinions, and I just happen to have a platform, and I like to hear what you guys have to say going into each and every one of these weeks. So hold on, we have another question. Whitney says, which Chicago sportscaster influencer would you want to do a live with? Good question. So I'd have to think about that. There may or may not be one person who I've interacted with a lot here that I've floated that idea by. There's no schedule, but if you've seen my desperate replies, you might on Twitter, you might have an idea of who I'm talking about. But she knows who she is, so let's get it going. But anyway, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Anyway, it's time for the happy ending. So close your eyes, open your mouth, and just pray until it's over. A tough loss. It's a tough loss, obviously. The fact that the Bears lost this one, the 5-game winning streak is over. You're now 1-3 within the NFC North. I mean, you have 2 more games. You have 1 more against the Packers, 1 more against the Lions. It's a pretty tough schedule, all things considered. But again, I think the big thing here for the long term to be optimistic about is how the Bears adjusted in the second half and how they looked better, how the offense improved the pass protection. They picked up blitzes better, but also how the receivers managed to get open and how they managed to exploit the blitz heavy approach. And naturally, I feel like if a defense goes with a blitz heavy approach, it points to one of two things. One, they don't trust their defensive line to get home with 4 guys, which obviously the Packers should, because they have Micah Parsons and a really talented defense. You have Rashawn Gary out there as well off the edge. Kingsley and Agbare has shown some encouraging flashes this year, and their linebackers can blitz, but it usually shows that 1, you don't trust your defensive line to get home with a 4-man rush, or 2, you don't respect the quarterback. And I like to think that this was more of the latter. I think that the Packers were like, all right, let's just overwhelm the hell out of Caleb so that he can't make accurate throws. It worked a little bit early, but down the stretch, I mean, Caleb Williams is one of the best in the NFL at avoiding sacks. That's the one thing that you can point to where it's like, all right, he's elite at that with his agility, his escapability, and the contact balance to work through contact, to work through attempted tacklers and to stay upright and to keep scanning the field and to keep moving. He's really good at that. And you combine that ability with the receivers doing a better job of understanding how to exploit those, you know, the back seven or the back six or the back five or however many it is that you have dropping back in coverage at a given time. And I think the offense did a lot better job of that. Simultaneously, I think the defense showed some flashes. It wasn't nearly as consistent as it needed to be. I think they got better as the game progressed. The second quarter was particularly bad. The coverage on the deep ball was particularly bad, but I think the run game got a little bit better. I think the underneath coverage uh, was better as the game progressed and got on. I think that if you can go forward and figure out exactly how to get these safeties on track, specifically Brisker, if you can be able to make sure that he knows what his assignments are and he's able to act on those properly, I think that could go a long way because this Bears team, they blitz the passer at a pretty heavy rate compared to most other teams in the NFL. If I don't think that's going to change in the next coming weeks. So what you need to do then is make sure that your defensive backs are executing on their assignments. I don't think that you're going to face for the most part, I mean, the Browns don't have a very good group of receivers. The 49ers, I mean, their group of receivers are okay, but I mean, it's not an amazing down the field with your wide receiver sort of receiving game. It's rely on George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. So again, that's going to be another one where it's underneath. Uh, but yeah, and then the Lions have good receivers, obviously, but the Packers have a pretty good group. 49ers and Browns, I feel like you can get away with a little bit more of the blitz down the field, and rely on maybe not loading the box, but also disguising some of those plays and having Kyler Gordon if when he's healthy, having Brisker, having C.J. Gardner Johnson come downfield and rush the passer. Then I think that you're not gonna be as pressed for giving up big plays down the field because I think the Packers, as fun as it is to say, oh, they don't have a wide receiver one, uh, they Jaden Reed is pretty damn good, and that offense is a lot better than now that he's back, and Christian Watson's finding his footing. So if you can find a way to keep to limit the deep passes down the field, I feel decent about their abilities against the Browns and the 49ers. Now the Packers and Lions, we'll see. I don't know, but there's still a lot to be optimistic about. Obviously, it sucks when the Bears lose to the Packers, but I think this answered a lot of questions about is this a good team? I think the answer is yes. I think this is a good Bears team. Is it a great team? Maybe not. Is it the best team in the NFC like their number one seed showed at the time? Maybe not, but it's still a talented squad that's pretty well coached and doesn't give up in the face of adversity. I think that's going to help them out really well in the long run. So that's about going to do it. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. We're about a little bit at an hour here for the show. Over 5K of you listening live. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in live on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, as well as anybody who listens after the fact uh, on those said channels or wherever else you get your podcasts. Much appreciated. Bears, unfortunately, the 5-game winning streak comes to an end, 28-21 against the Green Bay Packers, but we're on to Cleveland, and the Bears have an opportunity to get double-digit wins for the first time since 2018. Let's see if they can get the job done. They're hosting Cleveland, they're hosting Green Bay, and they host the Lions in Week 18. 3 of their final 4 games of the season are at home. We'll see what they can do with it. And it's worth noting, too, that they are, if I can pull this up, they're 1-1, 2, 3, 4. They're 4-1 at home. The Bears are 4-1 at home. I had to count it out loud again because I'm a child. but they're 4-1 at home, and the remaining 3 games are all at home, including the one against the Browns next week. So before we go, a quick breakdown of what the playoff race is going to look like. The Bears are now the 7th seed in the NFC. Uh, 49ers are on bye this week, but going into next week, the games you want to watch are the, if it'll show up, Packers versus Broncos. They're going to Denver. A win for the Bears against the Browns and a loss for the Packers against the Broncos mean the Bears are back in first place. The Lions, who are currently right on the Bears' tail on the outside looking in on the playoff race, they go to Los Angeles and they play the Rams next week. So that's another big one that uh, the Bears have the potential to get back into the number one, at least the top spot in the NFC North. And the 49ers play the Titans, which is a game that they'll probably win, but I don't know. Stranger things have happened. So, quick little breakdown on the playoff race. But again, appreciate every single one of you. Friendly reminder, like we mentioned earlier at the top of the show, you go to rula.com/gridiron to get started today on mental health resources, and sessions can cost as little as $15. I mean, it's a game changer, and it sets you up with mental health. You know, it says with therapists, with counselors right out of the gate. So strongly recommend you check that out. Appreciate every one of you for tuning in. It sucks the Bears lost, but there's always next week. So for everyone at the Second City Gridiron podcast channel, I've been Jacob Infante. Thank you all for tuning in to wrap it up, the official post game show of Second City Gridiron. Bear down, everybody.